Morning, Toastmasters.
Morning, everybody.
I call this an icebreaker for a reason. I'm beginning to find out what that reason is. My name is Tim Taylor, as he said. People used to say when I was little, he's such a smart boy. That's what everyone would say about me. My mother used to tell me that. I grew up in a rough and tumble family in Memphis, Tennessee. My dad came to Memphis on a football scholarship in 1958. He grew up in a dirt farm in Mississippi. Very, very rough, 8 brothers and sisters, and he was the oldest. His dad was also a carpenter, so his dad would often leave for long periods of time, and he would leave my dad in charge of the whole farm at like 12 years old, including all his brothers and sisters. He had to maintain them. So he grew up really, really tough, and that was a trait that was with him his whole life. When he was in high school, he realized that he could play football, and he loved football because it got him off the farm. He said that's what he loved about football was it got him off the farm. These guys would be out playing, and they would be wheezing and everything, and he'd say, "Oh, this is so much easier than farm work. I can't believe it." He was so good, he actually got a scholarship to college. He went to the University of Memphis, but before he got to Memphis, he actually played at a junior college for 2 years. And this coach at the junior college was so tough. My dad used to tell him these stories about this coach, and you couldn't believe the stories. They would make him practice in a lake. I mean, things like that. I mean, incredible, incredible things. And I didn't believe him. I never believed him. And then one day, he walked up in 1984, and he brought me Sports Illustrated magazine. And the title of the story was "The Toughest Coach There Ever Was." And that was his coach. And it was the longest article ever written in Sports Illustrated magazine. Wow. Okay? So my dad played for him. You can see the helmet there. There's a skull and crossbones on the helmet. The coach's wife used to paint him on there. So I suddenly believed all his stories. But him being very tough made me tough. I grew up in like I said, in a very rough and tumble family. I was expected to do all the things Southern boys do. I went deer hunting, played football, had girlfriends, drove hot cars. I did all that. But remember, people always said he's such a smart boy. So when I got to college, I suddenly touched a computer for the first time when I was a sophomore. There weren't computers that you could get your hands on back then. And suddenly my whole world opened up. I realized this is what I want to do. My professor gave an extra credit problem to the class, and I was determined to solve it. I went over to the university, in the computer center. I got there at 8 o'clock in the morning when it opened. I left at 2 o'clock in the morning when it closed. And that was the only person that got the problem right. So I don't remember eating, I don't remember going to the bathroom, I don't remember anything with working on that problem all day, and I think that's actually what I did. So computers were my thing. But when I was a junior in college, my whole world turned upside down. I was dating this girl, and she invited me to go on a retreat with a bunch of students. I had no idea what was going on, so I went on this retreat. Suddenly I realized these were all Christian students, and I wasn't. And they were very, very different than me, and I didn't know what it was exactly, but I realized that they were Christians and I wasn't. Well, on that trip, I actually became a Christian, and like I said, my whole world really turned upside down. I met my wife the same day I became a Christian. We've now been married 34 years and we have 3 children. We appreciated the organization that organized the trip, and so we actually went to work for them right out of college. I went to work for the largest missions organization in the world. It was in Southern California. From Memphis, Tennessee to Southern California was quite a cultural shift. But I came in there, and of course they said, "You're a computer guy, we got a mainframe computer." So I was a mainframe programmer for several years, and then suddenly one office wanted a PC. And the IBM PC was invented the year I graduated from college, so I knew a little bit about them, so I set up that machine, and then somebody else wanted one, and then somebody else wanted one, and by the time at the end of the first year, I had installed 50 PCs. By the end of the second year, I had installed 150 PCs, and it was just me. So back then, there were no networks. When you had a problem with your computer, I had to walk right to your desk. And so I would go to people's desks, fix their computer, I'd come back to my desk, there was an entire wall of those little pink Post-it notes of everybody's problems. So I would just take the next one, go to the next desk. Over the 13 years I worked for that organization, I installed over 2,000 PCs and servers. So obviously, IT was in my blood. When we left in 1999, I decided to start my own IT company. I literally did, out of the trunk of my car, start my own company. Today we have 15 employees. We maintain over 1,500 computers for our customers in Central Florida. When I started my company, I looked for, whenever I've had to do anything in my life that I didn't know how to do, I would always find somebody else that knew how to do it and say, "How did you do this?" So I looked for a book, How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company. I couldn't find it. And so one day I said, all right, that's enough of that. I'm just going to write it myself. So I sat down and I wrote How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company.
Nice.
It's on Amazon now, Kindle download, and find scores. But you know, starting the company out of the trunk of your car, that's what Colonel Sanders, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs all did the same thing. I'm sorry. One more significant thing in my life that I wanted to share with you. In 2002, I was invited to go on a missions trip to Africa. And it was an AIDS was ravaging Southern Africa, as you know. And I took my two sons. One was 11, one was 13. They were the youngest kids on the trip. And so we had a fantastic time. We got to speak in public schools. We went into this is a very remote part of Southern Africa, mud huts, no electricity. And I met a young man there who was one of our translators, and he said, you know, I really want to go to seminary. He lived in a mud hut by a river, no running water, no bathroom. And he said, I really want to go to seminary. And the only seminary in the country was 500 miles away. I told him when I was leaving the country, I said, I'll help you if I can. And I'm trying to get through this. About 6 months later, I got an email from the school, and they said he was at the gate, and they weren't going to let him in unless I agreed to pay for his tuition. He had walked and hitchhiked 500 miles to get there. And he said, I believe God led me here, and he's going to provide it for me. So the school contacted me and said, you got to pay for his tuition, room, and board. So what did I do? Since I'm such a smart boy, I paid for his tuition, room, and board for the next 3 years. And he has since become an itinerant preacher, and he now lives in northern Namibia, and he wants to start a seminary there. And he's been writing me, and in November of this year, in just a few weeks, I'm actually going to Africa, and I'm going to see how realistic this is. And we are going to start a seminary in northern Namibia in Africa. So since I'm such a smart boy, I want to make a difference in this world. Thank you very much.